people care very much. Sometimes the amount of how much they care overwhelms them.
So let's say I'm an egoist. So I care about you. I care, but I don't right now. Like there's cats being abused, and there's kids being abused, and there's people being murdered, and everywhere in the world and in the universe there's probably aliens, infinite number of worlds where aliens are suffering and animals are suffering, and there's so much pain in the universe, and there's also so much beauty and laughter there. I don't see the point of caring about the universe as much as I would like to. But when I can like I'm interacting with you, I want to make sure that you enjoy interacting with me, because I want to be, and I enjoy your company. I want you to be my friend.
Yeah, but I didn't even get through my like thoughts and opinions because I'm immediately met with nobody cares about anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And first of all, that's not a true statement. People do care. And second of all, I didn't even get to tell you what I was going to tell you because that's what you meet me with when I'm not even done.
I'm sorry. I
It's almost like if I was in like the 1800s and you just kept like shutting down my opinion. It's like I have a valid opinion here.
oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I was still switching from the iPhone to the laptop, so I wasn't paying
Well,
attention.
you need to be more mindful. Like, every time you want to say, I don't care, I don't want to hear it. I would
Mm,
rather you say something better than that, because what you mean by I don't care is definitely something else. There's definitely something you could elaborate on. And you don't ever have to say, I don't care, or other people don't care to me ever again. You can just think harder about what you actually want to say and then say that, because these two statements are completely unproductive.
I
And they're not
understand.
true.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. All right, but go on, express your opinion. I'm sorry I interrupted you halfway through.
It's all right. So anyway, I was thinking about
Hmm.
it just let's say psychology and therapy as like a whole, how both things don't seem to meet each other where it matters. Because the only real
Hmm.
psychology that matters is behavioral psychology.
Hmm.
And we're the only animal
Hmm.
that blames a person for their own pathologies and then makes them answer for them and be accountable for them. I think that's inherently abusive,
Hmm.
and I think that we know that doesn't work because we don't do it to animals. Like we don't what's it called? We don't psychoanalyze an animal. We take it out of its environment
Hmm.
and we give it a better environment. Or we train them, like, you know what I mean, to fit better into society. Some people need that sort of training. That's why we have stuff like anger management or certain behavioral therapies for autistic people. We don't do that, you know, in the right way. Like we're making people almost get into the principal's office and talk about why they're so bad when it's not their fault.
Hmm.
And what they really need is validation and some sort of rehabilitation. They're not getting the rehabilitation that they need in therapy or in these environments. They're either getting pills, which I don't think the pills are all bad,
Hmm.
but I think that they're being used in like the wrong application because you're making this person be accountable for things they're not accountable for. Like they're not responsible for the things you're trying to hold them accountable for. Like no one is responsible for how shitty the world is right now. And no one is responsible for, having abusive parents. No one is responsible for their abusive environment.
Hmm.
So that's what I don't understand is why do we treat people like it is their fault, and why are we holding them accountable for it when there's an external factor
Well,
instead of just aiding them? Like what we should do is either get them out of that environment or have a practical solution that we can aid them with. And then we wouldn't have them repeatedly coming into these doctors' offices saying something is still wrong. Obviously, something is still wrong because they don't have the opportunity to change anything about their life. So if they can't change anything, what's the point on self-reporting every week saying that something is fucked up?
Wait, okay. So give me an example, like from your life or something, because I don't know what you're talking about. I don't go to the doctor. I don't know who goes to the doctor. Go to the doctor, you said?
Well, I don't go anymore because I know it's not going to work.
What doctor? The psycho doctor, the psychotherapist, whatever, the psychologist, psychiatrist.
Either of them.
Okay.
I don't think I ever. Well, I think I talked to a psychologist before because I had like an intake,
What's an intake?
but like they didn't prescribe me anything that helped. Like,
What's an intake?
you have to talk to someone before you get a therapist, basically, to see where you fall under like these qualifying factors for insurance. Like, it's like you have to talk to someone before you talk to someone, basically. That's what intake is. It's like having a job interview for therapy.
Oh,
That's the best way I can put it.
that makes sense.
It's like a job interview for therapy. And when I had the intake, I thought that I was going to get someone catered to my needs because that's what they told me. And I ended up getting a therapist who was brand new at her job and she knew nothing about me. And when I tried to talk to her about being abused as a child, she like slowed me down and told me that she needed to get to know me better. And I'm like, this is not a date. You know, like I don't go to the doctor and say I have a rash on my genitals and they're just like, whoa, I didn't buy you a drink first or anything. It's like, you know, that's not how it goes. If I have an immediate problem and I know what the source of it is, the doctor should be happy that I know what the source of it is and I can point directly to it. It saves them time. So it doesn't make sense for like this relationship with my therapist to almost be like a relationship with a friend, and that's also not what I was paying her for.
Wait, what about BetterHelp, BetterHealth, whatever, Better?
That's kind of a scam. Like those people don't show up to your appointments, and they just like
Really?
aren't qualified to be doing their jobs. Yeah, you could look more into it if you felt inclined or something, or I could show you some stuff. But yeah, those people very commonly are just scamming, you know, people who want legitimate help, and also they don't necessarily work with insurance companies, so you pay out of pocket to be ignored by people, which if you're already struggling with your mental health, I'm sure that really brings people down.
You know what might be a good idea is to like have a therapy session on this, like unrecorded for YouTube as content. Has anyone done that?
I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that could be beneficial, but there are privacy concerns
But
with that. Yeah, because there's an expectation of privacy
the doctor
when you're in the doctor's. Yeah, there's an expectation of privacy. So you can't record your doctor without them knowing and then share that with other people. You could potentially do it for your own benefit, like take a tape recorder in your purse and go to the doctor, but you can't use that against the doctor later. You can't publish it on the internet. That would break a two-party recording rule. That's why certain phone calls can't be used during trials, because the other party was not aware that recording was happening. So it's bringing up a lot of gray area stuff. And then it's another thing where if the person is aware that they're being recorded, then they're going to give the best possible care, which will give a false representation of what that care could look like for other people. You know, that's the problem, is I keep looking for these clinicians that are like these YouTube clinicians, the ones that seem like they really care. And those people are they're just doing it online. So they have the effort and they have the energy for it. It's not what I'm getting in the actual doctor's office, where those people are exhausted. They're trying to pay back their student loans and they're not concerned about me. They're concerned about their own lives, you know, and like they're just trying to find the easiest explanation, which isn't even the right one.
Wait, Amber, somebody's asking, what are we talking about? Are we talking
And
about
we can talk about therapy.
therapy?
Tell them it's a therapy talk. We're talking about therapy.
Okay, soon I'm gonna have to go talk to a new chick that I need to call her back. I need to
A
maybe.
chick?
Actually, we're texting. I don't think she wants to talk yet. Yeah, a chick. A chick.
Uh,
Yeah, but I don't think she wants to talk yet. We're just texting, so I'm still. So I don't have to.
is this a date, or is this
Yeah, I mean,
related to? Okay, cool. Cool.
I hope it will be a date. She's very, she's.
Yeah, but it's someone you actually know.
It's IRL. It's from an app from Bumble.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're talking about. So what do you think about the? Did we talk about what's going on with Iran?
A little bit.
Did
And
you
then
see?
your physics friend came in.
Oh, but this was before the latest attack from Iran. Did you hear about it? Do you care?
I care about Israel. I don't care about Iran.
But Iran fired a barrage of ballistic missiles, and Israel destroyed. Is no one in Israel got a scratch?
Mm-hmm.
They launched 180 ballistic missiles, and Israel, no one got in Israel got even hurt. No one. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you saw all the missiles raining down on Israel, but nothing happened to anyone in Israel except for one Palestinian died.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Which is great.
no, it's we don't know his political persuasion. Maybe he's pro-Israel, so we don't know.
Well, I'm saying it's great that the majority of people were not harmed.
Oh, for sure, yeah, but it's
It's
not.
because when it comes to the other end of this war, people are harmed constantly. It's mostly civilians that suffer because of it.
What, on the Palestinian side?
On both sides, the whole strip is completely eliminated.
The whole strip? Oh, the Gaza Strip? No, the Gaza Strip
Mm-hmm.
is fine. There's nothing wrong with. I don't think there's anything. I don't know. I don't know. I shouldn't.
It's bombed to shit. It's completely fucked up.
Anyway, yeah, yeah, but I think. I mean, Israel should. I think this is a case where it's probably a good idea for Israel to use nuclear weapons to wipe out Iran.
They either will or they'll use an airstrike because they're backed by Google very strongly. Like they could really eliminate exactly who they want to, as long
Yeah,
as they could see them. The
yeah,
issue is that most of these people are underground, so we can't pick them out with cameras.
yeah, but I mean, Israel should use nuclear weapons to wipe out like the nuclear sites and all the military sites. It's just more efficient. Israel doesn't need to go all the way to Iran. It's a dangerous trip. It's really far. We're risking military equipment, which is very expensive. We don't like Israel doesn't have that much, and
We gotta bring people back home, though. We're doing it so we can get our hostages back.
no, that's
If
not.
we nuke the whole area, it's more likely we're not going to.
No, Israel doesn't need to nuke Gaza or shouldn't. No, there's no need to nuke Gaza. Gaza is not an issue. Israel needs to nuke Iran. Iran have been very bad, and the government, it's a dictatorship. They need to be taken out. They've been misbehaving to like overly misbehaving. It's like at a certain point, if your child misbehaves and is like a super criminal. Like you don't have a choice. You have to take the child out. It's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but sometimes you don't have a
I've
choice.
I've been thinking that about North Korea forever. I don't get
Yes,
why we don't just do that.
yes,
At this point, whoever we lost as a civilian, it's like, do you really think those people mind because they're living in hell? I
yeah,
don't see how any type of attack on North Korea could make it worse than it already is.
yeah, yeah,
It would completely liberate the area, and then we'd be able to build things so they could have normal lives.
yeah. Because I mean, the only blowback is you have the extreme left, like Noam Chomsky, who is pure evil, and you have the extreme right, like Candace Owens. I mean, these people both,
Yeah,
they're both super evil. I mean, these people are super evil. They're the only ones who are going to be bothered if we take out North Korea or Iran or any other evil or any other evil dictatorship. I mean, so like
I mean, if we bomb them for the right reasons, I think that that's perfectly reasonable.
yeah.
But when it came to like Joe Biden wanting to bomb them in the 90s, he's just a racist old asshole.
Wait, he wanted
You
to bomb.
know,
Who did he want to bomb?
he wanted to bomb Iran. He sang a little song about it.
Wait, but Joe Biden wanted to bomb Iran?
Yeah, you should look it up, but you don't know what I'm talking about.
Let me see. Let me Google it. Did Joe Biden want to bomb? That would be weird because right now he's so weak.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the problem is like nothing he says right now has anything to do with the type of person he actually is,
I
which
don't
is why
see.
we've been saying the whole time.
I don't see anything.
I'll find it for you.
Okay. Ta-li-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Do you know the song? Ah-la-la-li-la-li-la-li-la-li-la-li-la-la. Ah-ni-na-na. Ah-ni-na-ni-na-na-na.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Senator McCain.
Oh, then McCain was a
I've
good.
been thinking this whole time it was just Joe Biden when he was younger.
Then McCain was actually a good guy. I used to hate McCain because he was so anti-Trump, but now I love McCain. So
Well, he was anti-Trump because Trump said some shit about him being a prisoner of war, and he's like, I don't care about prisoners of war. I care about people who weren't captured.
yeah, they got off a bad foot. Somebody should have made peace between them because they're both, I think, like good guys. But anyway.
You've got it on either side because when you go to the Tim Wetz people, he has stolen valor and
Tim Wet?
tries to act like he was seeing active combat when he never did.
Who's Tim Wet?
He's Kamala's vice president pick.
Wait, what? Wet? Welts? Waltz?
Well, I thought it was
Well,
just WETZ.
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I hope we'll hear in the next couple of hours that Israel. As far as I know, the whole night now, Israel is going to be sending bombers into Iran to. I don't think to nuke them, but certainly to severely cripple Iran. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Israel should just go. Israel should. If I were the presidente of Israel, I would start by going into, I would say Lebanon, yeah, Syria, probably Syria first, and take over a military air base. Just take it over and make it Israel's new air base. One second, I have a message. Let me get that message. Oh, everything is okay. Anyway, so Israel should like take over a military air base, and then the next thing is do the same thing in Iraq. Do you know the map? Like between Israel and Iran, there's Syria and Iraq. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So for Israel to go to send like a fighter jet all the way to Iran. That's like very long distance. That's very uncomfortable. It's dangerous, uncomfortable. So it makes more sense to first go to Syria, conquer an air base, take it over, make it an Israeli air base, and then the next step is go to Iraq and do the same thing. Take over a military facility, an air base, and turn it into an Israeli air base, either temporarily or permanently. And then build it up and then strike from an Iraqi Israeli air base, strike Iran. Like from the morning until the morning. Endless, just endless, endless, endless attack. Just wipe out every Iranian military facility, any power, any energy facility. Just wipe it out. Just completely wipe out any ability Iran has. Just completely bring it back to the Stone Age. And that's it. Because Iran is the center of evil. Iran is the power behind Hamas, behind the Hezbollah, behind the Houthis, behind Iraq. There's also Iraqi militias who are anti-Israel. One second. Message from the chick.
So Iran launched a major missile like an hour ago.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. So this chick that I'm chatting with, she. She keeps like she's so difficult. Like I'm just chatting. I've never had any chick like this that is so difficult to chat with.
Hmm.
Like she's so challenging. I've never met. I mean, she's beautiful, obviously. So beautiful chicks tend to be like terribly difficult to deal with because like everybody wants them, so they rule the world. They do whatever they want. So, do you understand?
Yeah, I do.
So she's so difficult. Like I've been chatting with her nonstop since I think last night or 2 nights ago.
It's a good
Nonstop.
sign.
What?
It's a good sign.
It's a good sign, but she's like, you're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're chatting with other chicks. You're chatting with other chicks. You're chatting, with others, and I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
that's weird.
Yeah, but I'm not. I'm not like that. I don't chat with multiple chicks. Like I'm fully focused. Like I give all my attention to one chick at a time. I happen to be very loyal. It's something I discovered late in life, but hold on. So she's asking so many questions. She's overwhelming me with questions. And she's so curious about the other chicks. I sent her a picture of the dating app so that she would see that I'm not chatting with anyone else. There's no one else in the pipeline. I'm fully focused on her. And it's like it's useless. And she's
I
asking,
mean, technically, you're talking to me. How would that go over if you said, "Well, actually, I'm chatting with this woman right now"?
right, but you're this is like a YouTube stream and we're
Yeah, but I feel like if she's that jealous, her response would either be like very pleased because she sees you're getting that sort of attention, or she'd be very
no
displeased
very
because
displeased. So these chicks,
you're dividing your attention.
yes, these chicks like super beautiful chicks. Like they don't care. They want 100,000% attention. She wouldn't want me to talk to anyone else. One second.
I am hungry.
No way. Why are you hungry?
Because I'm fucking stupid. I don't want to do anything about it. Like, I literally just want to sit here and not feel this way.
Wait, what? You're talking about being hungry? That you're overly hungry?
I would rather just skip it, you know?
Skip eating? Skip being hungry?
Yeah, both. Like, I would just rather, like, forget about it.
Do you eat enough protein?
I don't know. Probably.
That's good. Protein is very important. I just ate a bunch of.
Yeah, I make sure I get it every meal because if you don't, your brain kind of stops working. I've been really depressed though, like ever since we moved out of the South. Like it could be because I'm not getting as much sun, and I'm not going outside as much. Oh no, I thought about that earlier because I don't feel very motivated to do things.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm not. I have to answer all her questions. She's asking.
Come on,
Yeah,
Doctor Slave, it's time for my checkup.
your checkup.
I'm just kidding. No, you
Mm.
can answer her questions. I'm curious what they are though. Why does she have so many questions for you right out the gate when she hasn't met up with you yet?
Because she's beautiful, and every.
That's weird. You don't even know if she's beautiful. You could meet up with her and maybe what she puts online is beautiful. Maybe she's not.
No. You can see from the pictures. She's thin, tall, like perfect. She's just perfect. She's perfection. Young. She is 15 years younger than me.
I thought you were gonna say she was 15 years old. I almost had a fucking fit.
Mm.
Stopped my heart.
Your heart?
Yeah, I hate that. Like the feeling of like disgust that you get.
The feeling of disgust that you get from what?
From guys talking to young women, it just makes me feel like a dread. You know what I mean?
She's old. 15 years younger than me.
Yeah, I know, but like if I misunderstand you or something, I still get that like weird feeling where I'm just like, oh my god, you know, because it's that visceral.
Visceral? What's visceral? That she's what? I don't care about ages.
Yeah,
I can date a chick older than me. I don't care. As long as she's like beautiful, what do I care how old she? I prefer older.
yeah, older is fine as long as she's not fucking 15 years old. Like that's messed up, but you know,
Oh, 15 years old. Oh, no, that's a
yeah, I
little.
don't care if she's older than you. It's your preference, and you're an adult.
I don't care about the age. As long as she's hot and it's legal,
Yeah,
I don't care. Like
yeah, I agree to an extent, but I don't like the like, oh, if it's legal thing, because then people are like, oh, it's legal in this part of the world to have sex with a 9-year-old, so I'll go do that. And it's like,
wait,
no, that's sexual tourism. That's fucked up.
wait, but you know that like in New York City, it's a different age like than New Jersey and stuff. Like you can cross.
Yeah, but that's because of child marriage. That shouldn't be legal.
I
That
don't.
was
Hmm.
because we were trying to get refugees out of certain countries and into our own so that they didn't have to suffer that type of involuntary decision.
Wait 1 second. Let me find. She's asking a very technical question. She's asking if I'm staying here, if I'm.
Crack.
What?
Sorry. Nothing. I'm just fucking around.
Oh my God, she's so difficult. She's now saying that because I'm traveling, that it's inappropriate.
Is this girl like realistically out of your league?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Like I've like my previous girl is really young. Like and super gorgeous. I date really really beautiful chicks.
Okay. Mm.
But each one is a challenge. It's not like it gets easier. It's like each beautiful chick is just as difficult as any other beautiful chick. It's just that I'm very selective. I don't date ugly chicks.
Do you like the challenge that comes with that?
No. Maybe. I guess.
I'm just wondering, like, if she was just as beautiful, but it was easier, if it would have the same appeal.
No, I just want to be around beautiful chicks. I just love beautiful chicks. That's all. I don't mind that it's so difficult. I don't mind that it's always a challenge and they're always yes, no, no, yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes. It's like
Would you talk to me less if you knew I was ugly?
no. We're friends. We're friends. We're online friends.
So that never had a factor in it.
No, there's no like I talk to guys too
Just
online.
wondering.
No, you're a friend. Like you're great to talk to. You're good company. Like you're normal. Like most other people on Discord and on the internet are Looney Tunes. They're like they're impossible to talk to. I mean, they're so toxic. Not just on internet. I think in real life, most people are toxic.
I think the world just facilitates toxicity so it becomes people's default, and it's like they're victims of circumstances at that point. But a part of this breaking out of the matrix should be focused on rewriting those norms. Like I don't think that we're going to get anywhere just grinding and making money. I think that we need to create a kinder world.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on. I know. I wanna listen to what you're saying. So just let me. She's not relenting, and she's of course threatening to break up. So. Uh.
Oh gosh, do you want my help or something? I can call
n-
you.
no, no, no. She's just saying she doesn't want to be the reason why I'm staying here. So. Uh, she doesn't want me to stay here just for her. This is before we even spoke on the phone. Oh my god. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lie to her, but I would definitely stay wherever I find a beautiful chick to be with. I would stay there. I don't care. I don't have any preference to be anywhere in the world. I'll be anywhere where I find love or lust or both. Anyway, what did you say before? I wasn't listening too well. You said something?
Oh, I just asked you if you felt differently about me because you knew what I looked like, essentially.
I don't remember if I know what you look like.
It's in our DMs.
I don't think it's important. Like,
Okay.
I think what's important is that it's fun to talk to you, and it's 1 second. More
Um,
questions. I'm sorry. Oh, I just told her. Oh, I can't tell you. So anyway, I just told her something, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." Oh, finally,
oh wow.
something that that makes her react emotionally. Uh, la, 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 la. So, what do you think about the anyway? Anyway,
Well, I think about what?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I really want to hear already that Israel went into Iran and bombed the living hell out of
I was looking, but all I see right now is Israel is trying an airstrike,
Israel.
which
Is what trying
they're yeah, they're doing missiles and
to where?
airstrikes.
To where?
Iran.
Who
They're
says?
doing it
Wait,
in like Tel Aviv.
what do you mean Tel Aviv? No, that's Iran attacking Israel. But you just said Israel is attacking Iran. Which is it?
Iran is attacking Israel.
Yeah, that we know. But Israel is supposed to be fighting back. How do you explain that there's so many idiots in the universe?
Again, I think that has to do with like a lot of our systems just creating an unkind world for people. It's like, why would people be smart if it doesn't benefit them? People who are smart don't get to go very far and they just get depressed. So it just benefits people to be stupid. And then they suffer less because of it.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm so sorry. Wait, I asked you, how do you explain that there's so much idiots in the world?
Yeah.
She's not relenting, which is, as you said, it's a good sign. She keeps asking questions, so I gotta answer. Are you still hungry?
Yeah.
What are you gonna eat?
I was like, just am not gonna bother. Just don't want to.
Now she's saying that I'm no good for her. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna work with her. I mean, she's impossible.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's giving me too much of a hard time. It's gonna like she's gonna destroy the relationship over nothing. Oh, you
It's
blame?
a bit weird considering if she is so gorgeous and available. Why is she harping on you like this? Shouldn't she also have other people that she's talking to? That doesn't make any sense to me.
La 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 la.
Ugh.
Anyway, yeah, I think she's going to pull the plug. The,
She probably just wants you to feel that way. But maybe you should pull the plug if she really wants you to feel that way.
I don't know. Like, I don't get it. Yeah, she's gonna be impossible. She's gonna be thoroughly impossible. I'm about to pull the plug at this rate.
Yeah.
She's like wasting my time. Everything I tell her, she's like, every guy says that. It's like everything I say. I told her, "Oh, you're so beautiful." She says, "Yeah, every guy says that," and I'm sure. And she goes, "Every guy says that to every girl." It's like, what do you want from my life? What do you want from my life? What? Let's say it's true. So every guy says that to every girl. All right. What do you want from my life?
Yeah, I don't know. You're not there to fix her insecurities. You're not responsible for her happiness. So,
She's like, what are you looking for? This is day 4 into our texting. What are you looking for? Oh my god. You know, I've like at certain points I become so like hold on.
I would find this really exhausting, honestly. Like, I don't like these conversations with men either. Like, I've had conversations with men like this, and they get all the way into marriage when we just started talking, and it's just weird.
Yeah. Look, I can understand you if you wanna if you wanna pull the plug, because it's gonna be very difficult to talk like this.
I don't care. I'm just chilling. I'm probably gonna need to actually do something. I can multitask making dinner and just chatting right now.
Hmm. I'm just gonna let her moan and groan. I'm tired. I'm tired of texting her. But I wanted to.
She'll probably pay attention to you even if you ignore her, if she has this type of attachment style.
Yeah, I don't know. There's this Lebanese reporter. I'd rather my children die and Nasrallah resurrected. That's a Lebanese reporter. I think she's a woman. She said, I'd rather my children die and Nasrallah resurrected. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, she just texted me, right now I believe you. Oh my god,
Hmm.
she's like off her medication.
Oh my god.
No, I'm joking. I don't think she's on medication, but she's impossible. Yeah, she is. She's like a little baby,
Yeah.
which is good. That's the way I like girls. I like them like little babies. Yeah, she's impossible. She's asking me why I'm not tired.
You only stopped talking to her for maybe a minute or less. Like, I don't think that was even a full 60 seconds.
I told her that I'm doing research. And she says, "Are you looking into me?" She thinks
Oh,
she's,
she thinks you're like licking her up.
yeah. She's completely, she's,
When she's probably doing that to you.
look, she's completely off her meds. I mean, this woman is gonna be, she's gonna be impossible. Oh my god. My god. Now she's talking about how much she loves. Anyway, I can't say what she loves. Do you know the rule when you're texting someone, and so as you're texting, they're also texting? Do you know what to do in that case?
No.
So if you're a guy, my rule is delete whatever you're about to text, delete and wait for her to text.
I feel like people get caught in a cycle of that where they both delete what they're saying and then they realize the other person did as well, and then they go back and forth like typing thinking it's their turn and then deleting it.
No, so I used to text regardless, and then one time as I was texting like one of the like the last girl that I was living with in America. So as I was texting her, she texted me, "Stop texting me as I'm texting you." So since then, I developed this new rule to stop texting when I see the girl texting. So
I guess it's not a bad idea if
yeah,
that's what you always do.
yeah,
It's like traffic rules. If it's
yeah.
what you always do, it makes sense. If it's arbitrary, then it's a mess. I can make pasta right now.
Hmm.
I don't really want it. I don't really want to do anything. That's the fucking problem. Jesus.
Okay, I got it. I know how to get into her heart. So I told her, wow, how you're so sweet. And she says, it's true. Didn't you get that already? So telling her that she's so sweet, I think that's like one of the first things that she says no to. She says, yeah, that's right. I am sweet. Yeah, she's a real cutie pie.
I'm happy for you, dude. Hopefully it works out.
She just said, so I told her, so she tells me, wait, you didn't get that already? I told her, of course I got it, but now I know it a million times over that you're so cute. She says, you didn't get it yet. Wait until you see me. And then she sent me a smiley. Oh my god, she's a little cutie pie. I love girls that are like little babies. Just I love it so much that they're like little babies. She's alright. Okay, I sent her a kiss. Let's see how she reacts to the kiss. She says that I wrote in my Bumble that I'm cold at night and I need someone to hug me.
Damn. It's so different once you actually are sleeping with someone. It's like a really annoying experience.
It's an annoying experience.
I hate sleeping with other people.
That's so funny.
There's a lot of people who don't like it.
Who don't like what? To sleep together at night?
Yeah, like pretty much every time I've talked to a married woman about it, they don't like it either,
Mm-hmm.
or their sleep suffers a lot,
Mm.
or they've already given up and they just don't do it anymore and they've got like a separate sleeping arrangement.
Wow, that's incredible. That
No, that's how it used to be all the time. I don't know why we stopped doing it.
What?
I think it was to save money because people couldn't afford having 2 bedrooms anymore.
Hey, yeah, I mean, sometimes I meet girls that want to sleep separately.
Well, I mean, all the time. Like, it was just what people did.
Yeah.
And it's better for everybody's health.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Do you want to join me in my what do you call it? StreamYard?
Is it for physics?
It's for anything. We can watch videos together because this way we can't watch
Okay,
videos.
yeah, I'll do that. I just don't want to have another physics discussion.
No, we'll watch videos. I mean, we could watch a little bit of physics.
No.
A little bit. La 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 li la li la li la li la 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 li la li la li la li la li la la li la 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 li la 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 li la li la li la 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 li la la. Are you joining us? Click on the link.
Where is the
Click on the
okay.
link with the 4 at the end. Dee da 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 da. Dee da da. Dee da da da. Dee da da. Oh my god. Ah. La 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 li la 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 li la 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 li la la li la 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 li la la. Willkommen, willkommen, willkommen. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's watch some physics.
Oh no.
I is kidding. Let's go to the homepage. Let's see what the YouTube's algorithm recommends us. War the sheer access Iran attacks Israel. Rebecca Barsif. Why do physicists believe in these particles? What is entropy? Okay, Loner Box is still live. Let's see what he says.
Now the prepared question for Stephen. He'll get 5 minutes to respond, and then John likewise will get 3 minutes to respond to what Stephen said. Stephen, aside from taxes on tips, how can Kamala help mitigate the current heavy cost of living for so many Americans trying to make rent or mortgage payments? In other words, are there sort of blanket policies that might help those who don't make tips?
For me personally, I don't know if the tip thing is ever going to pass. For me personally, I think that expanding zoning is probably one of the most important things. I know that Kamala has talked about giving a lot of credit to first-time home buyers, which would obviously help people that haven't purchased a home before, aren't in real estate investing, purchase a home. And I know that they've also talked about expanding things or making.
This is so terrible. They're just, I mean, Kamal is just saying, let's even further complicate our tax system instead of it's like let's make more rules, even more rules, and more so that it's gonna be even more impossible to do your taxes. It's like instead of simplifying the tax system, you know, the tax system should be so simple. Like everybody pays, I don't care, 30%. Everyone pays 30% income tax. Done. I don't care how much you make. You pay 30% income tax or whatever. Pick a number. That's the number. Everyone pays. Done. No. So instead, if you make this and you're married and you have children, but if you have one child, but if you live here, but if you live there, but if you work there and you're there, if you pay this, you pay that. So it's like more rules and more rules and more rules and more rules. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, whatever. First time home buy. It's like first time. What if I sold my house and I'm buying a second home? Why should that be any
Right.
different? Why is it only a first time?
Well, they
And
want
what if
people not to even own homes. They just want people to
right,
only stay in Airbnbs or have like
right,
public housing.
right? So some people that have actually it discriminates against the poor because the poor never buy a house. So the credit goes to the rich who can afford a house. Those people who can afford the first time home buyers, they're wealthier than the homeless. So the homeless are paying for the people who can afford a home. Wait,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, it's hopeless. We're hopeless. Humanity is hopeless. If you were wondering, humanity is hopeless.
Oh, you
Okay.
know what?
Hmm.
I watched Melania Trump's interview.
Oh, I heard about it. What did she say?
Well, in closing, I liked how she said, "Do you really care about all of these tweets if you can't buy groceries?" And I was like, yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. They said, "Oh, she's leaving him. She doesn't want to be there. She's not supporting him. She's basically sleep together. They sleep separately. She hates him. She's leaving him. She's no longer there." And then she does an interview with nothing changed. It's like and all the people who were wrong. Who were wrong? Do you think they say, "Oh, we're sorry, we lied to the public"? No, no, like nothing happened. So you're allowed to incorrectly analyze. Giving an incorrect analysis, no one there's no price to pay for lying to the public. Anyway, let me see what's live. Gaza live. Gaza no longer matters because now we have Iran. We need to know what's happening with Iran. No place in Iran that Israel can't reach. Israel briefing after Lebanon. Nobody cares about Lebanon. We all want to know, when is Iran getting wiped off the map? Trump's chilling warning to Iran. Let's hear about it.
Happened in current days. The upper echelon of the FBI is all talk while they focus on the sitting president's political opponents. That's what they're doing. They spend so much
Can't
time.
roll back, so I'm not gonna look at it.
Sure.
There's some Trump speech, but you can't roll it back. Okay, let me see. Iran's final act. Let me see what that's about.
Not all of the time. These in Iran and their desire. This time, unlike the previous Iranian recorded, but even if you're watching, you've all heard by now. So, as you've all heard by now, certainly if you're watching recorded, but even if you're watching live, Iran has attacked Israel once again. This time, unlike the previous Iranian attack, it wasn't with the slowest rockets and drones that they had. It was with ballistic missiles. No doubt, the Israeli response to the previous Iranian attack back in April emboldened Iran and their desire to attack Israel. Remember, the Iranian regime has wanted to get rid of Israel since it got to power in 1979 and has only attacked Israel directly twice, both of those times in the past 6 months. Again, these are ballistic missile attacks. So unlike the homebrew stuff that Iranian proxies like Hezbollah shoot at Israel some of the time, not all of the time. These are precise. They're serious weapons. They're massive, and they can cause a lot of damage. Unlike the previous attack, some of these have actually landed, and there aren't reports of many serious injuries. There's a few light injuries. One person is dead, a Palestinian from Gaza working in Jericho, because they're precise, but they hit in different places. I don't know if this was the intention. I don't know if it's just because they're not that precise, but that is a part of the result. There was also a terrorist attack in Israel, in Jaffa, where 7 people were murdered. So, the terrorists, have not been defeated. As much as we are properly celebrating the past couple of weeks of Israel being stronger than it has been previously, clearly not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see what Destiny says.
To the right, okay? But that's not really true. In my opinion, the left-right paradigm only works as long as we're talking about one coherent, like broad political ideology, which is liberalism. Communists and socialists are not liberals. They don't believe in things like multiple political parties or open speech or dialogue, right? This is why Hassan says things like we should put these people in education camps, or why they would jail political enemies, or why they champion the gulags, right? They don't want capitalism society. They would ban things like private ownership and hiring employees because they see it as exploitative, and they would ban it in their society. And then similarly, when you go over to the right, and then you fall off the liberal paradigm on the right, and you go like MAGA people or like fascists or authoritarians, they don't believe in a decentralized government. They don't believe in checks and balances. They want a dictator. They want a strongman. They don't believe in like the freedom of the press, right? Donald Trump, the press is the enemy of the people. They don't believe in freedom of speech, you want to sue everybody that you disagree with, or you want to jail your political opponents. So I don't like saying that. I just don't like putting these people on the same left and right paradigm. It doesn't make any sense. You should never be trying to appeal to illiberal people. Yeah. I would argue you believe in democracy and socialism at the same time. Is that not the case? Not really, but because of what socialism means today, that's kind of true.
Mm-hmm. Pepe Escobar.
The problem is Zarif controls Pezeshkian from behind. Pezeshkian is Zarif's man. And obviously the IRGC, these people are much more hardcore. And of course, they
IRGC is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Directly aligned with Khamenei. Khamenei is the conceptualizer of everything in Iran, and the supervisor, of course. So, according to our source, he got extremely furious by this chain of events. So that's why the response this time, since the assassination of Nasrallah, which was on.
Mm-hmm. Extra boring. Let's see what she says.
Yeah, I'm interested.
So she says, what's happening tomorrow? So she says what's happening tomorrow. So I told her I'm available anytime. So okay, it doesn't look like Israel is attacking Iran tonight. Maybe later tonight. I mean, Israel is going to probably surprise. Oh my God. Let's see what's happening.
I bet.
So she's like, Let's see how she reacts. She just said, right now, I'm interested in you.
Hot.
I told her I'll change all my plans and we'll go wherever you want.
Raw.
So I was able to penetrate all her defenses. She's defenseless right now.
Well, all she wanted was to be given what she wanted, which you're willing to do it for her, so why would she get defensive?
Sure, I mean, because she already said that I'm no good. I'm not what she's looking for. But I didn't relent. I didn't react. I didn't respond when she said. When she said, "You're not what I'm looking for," I didn't react. This is John's rule. So you probably don't know John. So John teaches dating. So he says if a girl whenever she does something that you're happy with, you react positively. If she's doing something you're not happy with, you don't react, or like you treat her basically, like a child.
That's the same way I learned how to teach animals, so
What did you say? Animals?
that's how you train animals.
I mean, that's how you train anyone. Like, if somebody mistreats you, you keep away. If they treat you nice, you stay with them. She's like, why would I change my plans for her? I told her I would change my plans to meet you tomorrow, and she's like, why would you change your plans to meet me? So I told her, because right now, until you decide otherwise, you are the center of my universe. She's like, that's too much.
Whatever works, pal.
Look, that's how I feel. So John taught us to be yourself. Like, tell her how you feel. That's it. So it's not whatever works. That's me. I'm like when I'm interested in a girl, so I'm interested, and I'm transparently interested. So I'm not. It's not whatever works. It's the truth. It's the truth. Why doesn't YouTube show all the live channels? Like, this is not all the live channels. Like, I'm not here. Why am I not here? That's so stupid. Why wouldn't YouTube show all the live channels? I don't
Why
get
would
it.
they advertise you to yourself?
No, sometimes I show up in my own feed. Happens a lot. Like when I go, like many times I show up in my own feed. If I watch, if I watch this video, this Stern Gerlach, Loner Box is here. Judge whatever, Ayn Rand. We're so back. Destiny is here. Tom Dark is here. I don't know what that is.
I'm about to try to launch a
She's like,
modded game.
she's asking me, how do you know that you want me to be the center of your universe? No, I want to tell her because you're so hot. Why else do you think I want you to be the center of my universe? Because you're a hot chick. Why else would I? What kind of answer are you looking
Yeah,
for?
obviously.
But that's not. So I'm gonna tell because you're so sweet.
Ah,
I'm not gonna tell because she's beautiful. I'm gonna tell because you're such a sweetheart.
what's the most I don't know, authentic way of telling her you want to get laid?
I don't want to get laid. That's not what I'm looking for. I want. I'm looking for love. It's not. I'm not. Look, she is sweet. I'm looking for a true connection. I'm looking for chemistry. I'm looking to look into her eyes and see see I don't know, see myself, see something beautiful, see eternity. I want to dive into her eyes. So she says time will tell. So I'm not going to react to that because that's not a nice thing to say. Like, I gave her a compliment, and instead of saying, "Oh, thank you, you're so kind," she's like, "Time will tell." She's like, she's being a bitch. So every time she's gonna behave like a little bitch, now she's asking, please explain what you meant by, because right now, until you choose otherwise, you are the center of my universe. It's like, so she doesn't want an explanation. She just wants me to say it again.
Yeah. See, she's trying to do the same thing that you're doing. She's just using negative reinforcement. Every time you give her what she wants, she strikes you down because she wants you to keep doing it. She thinks you're attracted to the challenge.
When she says I have what? She says I have something cute, but I don't understand what she's saying. What? Okay. What is she talking? Okay, I need to look into my profile. Oh.
The fucking Christ.
I don't want to say something that might ruin it, but I have to be myself. So I want to tell her. She's like, "Why am I the center of your universe?" So I told her, "Because you're like a little child. I want to eat you."
That's probably not a good thing to say.
Yeah, I don't know, because that's how I feel. She's such a cutie pie. I want to gobble her up. What am I supposed to say?
I don't know, maybe call her something else, like a kitty or something, not like a child.
No, it's. I always treat women like little babies.
And to an extent, and they probably like it, but they don't want to know that you think of them as children because that's infantilizing.
But I don't. What should I do with this? How like she's such a little baby. Like she's behaving like a little baby. Like she's so needy, and I want to gobble her up. What am I supposed to do?
Maybe you should ask ChatGPT how you can reword that to sound less creepy.
Mm.
The mad god has given you a task. So someone of your copious talent should be able to handle it. In life, that's all.
Okay, I just told her it means that you are the sweetest in the world.
That's not that bad, but it's
But
a little generic.
yeah. Why is she still awake? My God, it's so late. Go to sleep. Jesus, come on. Okay, let's listen. Initial conditions for the molecular beam. What the heck? What?
Today, we are changing the initial conditions for the Stern-Gerlach experiment. Let's get started.
She's like, you already said that. Oh my God.
Mad God's blessings. Walk with our Lord. What? I am Kipling, steward of Lady Silk.
She says there is no woman who is at the center of your world, of your life. I'm sure that the opposite is truth. That like I am the center of other women's lives.
What do you want? The gatekeeper's been killed. This is only the first step. They'll be coming for me next.
What is that? Is that a game?
Yeah, I'm playing Oblivion.
Okay.
Both has a big problem with Brython.
It's yelling. Tell them to stop yelling.
Thank you.
I think it's here. It's really quiet.
My aunt, I serve Lady Silk. Thousands remain protected within the house of the nation. I'm safe.
Lila, 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 la, 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 la. Okay, let's eat some gum. Gum. Oh, gum. Gummy gum gum. Do you eat gum?
Yeah, when I'm out.
Mmm. Nom, 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 nom. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
We have been studying quantum mechanics, specifically the quantum mechanics of angular momentum. We've learned so far that, for example, any observation of angular momentum necessarily must be proportional to an integer times h over 4 pi. Additionally, we've learned that spin angular momentum is an inherent property of individual quantum systems, or basically particles like silver atoms, protons, or electrons. Because the spin angular momentum of these particles depends on their species, it never speeds up and never slows down. These two facts conspire to give us a really interesting phenomena that we can only measure the direction of a particle's spin angular momentum at a few distinct or quantized values. For particles with the smallest
Oh my god. Mm.
non-zero value of angular momentum, spin angular momentum allowed, h over 4 pi, there are only two angles, and those two angles are 0 and 180 degrees. Last time, we explored the very first experimental evidence of this fact in the Stern-Gerlach experiment.
Let's look at the
This time, we're going to
Stern-Gerlach.
augment the Stern.
The way that Stone puts on what
What?
Shit, I'm gonna get arrested because I stole something. Shit.
they will settle this.
I guess I'll just resist arrest and run away. I forgot I was stealing stuff.
Hmm.
That's what I get for trying to say hello. Now everybody's up my ass.
Hmm.
Quantum information, a beginner's guide. And specifically, lately we've been discussing the quantum mechanics of spin angular momentum. And
I don't even know what crime they're trying to get me to pay for because I also killed someone, but I don't think they know that. It's really funny. I can hear like the cops outside and like the music in the game. It's like it's so funny. Calm down.
And specifically, we've been talking
Run.
about the Stern-Gerlach experiment. In some sense, the Stern-Gerlach experiment is our first exposure to what you might call quantum information. And in that context, the silver atom is our first example of a quantum bit, or a qubit, of information. Unlike a classical bit of information, which is either always 0 or 1, true or false, representing the presence or absence of an electron in a given locus in some semiconductor, a quantum bit of information can be a linear combination of the two. So we've seen this in the context of the silver atom, which can be either spin up or spin down, measured at an angle of 0 or 180 degrees with respect to the Stern-Gerlach's big honking measuring magnetic field. As a silver atom enters the detector, its angular momentum can be pointed in any which direction. But once measured, it's always either spin up or spin down relative to that measuring device. And that is the key distinction between classical information and classical physics, and quantum information and quantum physics, that concept of measurement. Framed
Such nonsense.
as quantum information, the Stern-Gerlach experiment tells us three really important facts about qubits relative to classical bits of information. First, qubits can be measured, and the measurement changes their physical state of that system. It changes the physical state of the qubit. For the case of the silver atoms, it goes from being a possible linear combination pointed in any which direction to a specific vector state, up or down. Second, qubits can be prepared in any available physical state prior to measurement. And that preparation state, those initial conditions, if you like, set the probability distribution for the probabilities of, or the likelihoods of measuring that qubit in either the up or down state. Third, and this one is subtle but crucial, the very definition of the qubit itself, the very definition of what means to be up or down, depends on the detecting device. It's intimately related. The definition of a quantum bit of information, in other words, depends inherently on the detecting device. Up or down is always measured relative to something that is doing the measuring. Measurement, in other words, is the weird thing about quantum mechanics that distinguishes classical information from quantum information, and indeed classical physics from quantum physics. Today, we're going to elaborate on these ideas by considering a circuit made up of multiple Stern-Gerlach devices. But first, let's review the detailed mathematics involved in defining what our qubit is. That is to say, how we parameterize the information of a silver atom's spin angular momentum. Spin angular momentum is a vector in three-dimensional space, which is to say that the spin of a given silver atom can be pointing in any direction in three-dimensional space. The information of where that vector is pointing can be encoded in the components of that vector. So if the vector is s, those components are s sub x, s sub y, and s sub z. Now, these three vector components are not all independent in the sense that quantum mechanics tells us that the magnitude of the vector is fixed. They are integral units of h over 4 pi. Quantum mechanics also tells us that any attempt to measure that vector, or even just a component of that vector, will result in a finite resolution, a integral number of possible angles from which that vector is pointing. So for the case of a silver atom, we only have two possible angles that we can ever measure any component of that spin angular momentum vector at, 0 and 180 degrees. In other words, regardless of how S is pointing relative to the detector, we will always only measure the angular momentum of a given silver atom as parallel to or anti-parallel to the detecting magnetic field. Thus, from the perspective of quantum mechanics, there are two physical states that the silver atom can be in. One is up, parallel to that magnetic field, and one is down, or anti-parallel to that magnetic field. So that's another way that we can parameterize the information using the detector as our kind of reference media. In that sense, we will call the up state, the state that gets kicked up by the Stern-Gerlach device, up, as in with the up arrow, with this funny vector notation here. Similarly, the down state, the state associated to when a silver atom gets kicked downwards, is represented by a down arrow, again in this funny quantum mechanical state here. We use these funny so-called Ket vectors to emphasize that these are not vectors in three-dimensional space. They are vectors in an abstract, in this case, two-dimensional physical space of available states. Now, if a silver atom is in the up state perfectly to begin with, it will, of course, be kicked up by the Stern-Gerlach device. And if it's in the down state to begin with, it will, of course, be kicked down by the Stern-Gerlach device. But as we've learned, most of the time, silver atoms are in any other kind of crazy state. They can be oriented in any direction. And indeed, when we prepare silver atoms from a beam generated from a lump of silver presented in an oven with a little hole on the side, we know that their spins will be completely independent of their physical motion through space. So their spins will, in other words, be randomly distributed. Last time, we were able to encode that information.
Why?
They locked me in a room when they put me in jail, but it's not a room I can break out of. It just looks like a room with like concrete in it.
Hmm.
Completely sealed enclosure. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do.
Oh.
Using two constants, alpha and beta. That is to say, we wrote the physical state of the silver atom as alpha times up plus beta times down. This is a two-dimensional parameterization of the information contained within a given silver atom. Alpha and beta, of course, are related to the probability distribution of observing that silver atom in the up or down state, in the sense that mod alpha squared gives us the probability for finding it in the up state, and mod beta squared gives us the probability for observing it in the down state. Implicitly, of course, we have here assumed that alpha mod squared plus beta mod squared is equal to 1. That is to say, the probability is set to unity, right? The total number of possibilities is 100%, which effectively normalizes the state vector, say in this case AG, to have magnitude 1. We haven't spoken about complex numbers yet, and we will in due course. But for those of you who have some experience with complex numbers, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the relevance here, just as a preview of what's going on. In this parameterization, alpha and beta are actually complex scalars. They're complex numbers. And so what that means is the constraint that mod alpha squared plus mod beta squared is equal to 1, right? The normalization of that state, that thing that tells us the probability, is actually the real part of alpha squared plus the imaginary part of alpha squared plus the real part of beta squared plus the imaginary part of beta squared is equal to 1. So it's actually a 4 real parameter system. It actually is a 4-dimensional space, which we impose this one constraint to, which gives us a 3-dimensional space of states to work with. 2 of those dimensions are, of course, related to the angular, the azimuthal angle, and the longitudinal angle associated with which direction that vector is pointing. And there is a third kind of bonus degree of freedom that the quantum state has. It's not important for today's discussion, but it will be important later on. So I thought I'd just hint at it now. But that's enough for the complex technical mathematics. Let's go ahead and put a bunch of Stern-Gerlach devices in series and see what happens. With 2 Stern-Gerlach devices, we have the freedom to pick 2 separate angles, one for each of the orientations of the big.
Welcome back. So for our first real lecture of our quantum mechanics class, I'm going to start where a lot of textbooks starts, and I'm going to tell you about an experiment that helped us to understand why the quantum nature of reality actually exists. But I'm going to tell the story in a little bit of a different way than most textbooks do. Most textbooks start by telling you what the answer was. But of course, I like to think about science in a more narrative fashion, right? When we have a scientific model, or when we have a model, we can just call it that, that model makes predictions. And then we go out and we use experiments to test whether those predictions are consistent with reality or inconsistent with reality. So when we look at what's called the Stern-Gerlach experiment, the first thing that we want to ask ourselves is, are these predictions from regular, good old-fashioned classical physics consistent with what we get out of that experiment? So in order to understand that, I think we need to take a moment and we need to actually talk about what that prediction was. Now, there are lots of good reasons for us to know that particles, okay, and when I say particles here, I might mean electrons or I might mean atoms. Maybe our experience in physics 240 tells us that we're really talking more about atoms than we are electrons. But our experience with these particles tell us that many of these fundamental building blocks have permanent magnetic dipole moments. And I want you to think a little bit about what is our evidence for atoms, say, having permanent magnetic dipole moments. But there is good evidence that we've talked about in previous classes. And so you might ask yourself, well, I know what these materials look like in bulk, right? I have a piece of material, right? And I know by taking measurements of that material that it's built up of things that have permanent magnetic dipole moments. But maybe I want to measure what those magnetic dipole moments are, right? And so if I have a gas of atoms, I usually think about that gas of atoms as being made up of a bunch of these little dipole moments, and maybe they're headed in all different directions, right? And so say the magnetization of this gas turns out to be 0. But of course, there are tricks that I can play to help me understand why that magnetization might not be 0. But those tricks don't help me to measure what is the magnitude, say, of this permanent magnetic dipole moment associated with any particular atom. And so you come up with a way to try to do this. You take some atom that has some electrical charge, right? And we need the electrical charge in order to do the following. And we need to shoot it across the room, right? We need to shoot it at a screen so that we can do a measurement. And so on the left-hand side over here, I have a capacitor, and that capacitor is going to allow me to shoot some particles, some atoms across the room towards the right. So once I have those atoms moving, I can then try to measure their magnetic dipole moment by making those magnetic dipole moments interact with some sort of magnet. And so here in the middle, I'm going to have some magnet. And notice it doesn't quite look symmetric, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's see, magnetic field lines point from north to south, right? So these atoms that I'm shooting out of my lines, they're going to interact with the magnetic field for a short period of time. And that hopefully will then allow these atoms to be deflected, right? And so they'll show up on the screen on the right-hand side of the room because they won't all hit the middle of the screen because they've been deflected by the magnet. Right? So how does a magnet actually deflect something with a permanent magnetic dipole moment? Well, we know that if I have a magnetic dipole moment in the presence of a magnetic field, there's an energy associated with that, and that energy is given by minus mu dot b, right? So if the magnetic dipole moment and the magnetic field are aligned, that's a minimum of the potential. If they're anti-aligned, then that's the maximum of the energy of that system. Okay, and if I have a potential energy, right, then I can start to describe what the force might look like, right? If I have a potential energy gives me a conservative force, and that conservative force is given by minus the gradient of the potential energy. Isn't it wonderful how all of your physics forces are already coming into play in this final, in this first lecture, right? So just to recap quickly, I have atoms shooting across the room. They get near this magnet. They're going to experience a force if there's a gradient of the potential energy that describes the interaction of the magnetic dipole moment and the magnetic field. Okay? So in order to get a force, I need to have a gradient of the potential energy. Well, if I look at the right-hand side of the expression for the magnetic potential energy, I see that it actually can be a little bit tricky to get the gradient, right? Because, well, one, as I say on the bottom here, if I have no other magnetic field, then I can expect there to be no other torques or forces on these atoms, right? And so the magnetic dipole moment is not only constant in magnitude, but it's constant in direction. Okay, so the force is proportional to minus the gradient of u. Now, I can't take this gradient and distribute it into my dot product, right? Because the dot product is a scalar, and that's something I can take the gradient of. But I can't just pull the mu out, right, and talk about taking the gradient of the field, right? So I'm going to have to do the dot product before I take the gradient. Luckily, the minus signs do cancel, but I have the gradient of the x component of mu times the x component of b plus the y component of mu times the y component of b plus the z component of mu times the z component of b. And now, in order for this thing then to be not zero, well, I just said we can't treat any component of mu as being anything but a constant. Therefore, one of the components of b must not be a constant. And because of the way that I set up the system, right, I had a magnet that had a north and a south pole, right, and I had my magnetic field lines pointing downwards, right. The shape of this magnet is supposed to give us the impression that the magnetic field in between these two plates, in between the north and the south pole, is actually not a constant. And because
This guy is useless.
Hello, everyone. In this video, I want to talk about a very important experiment in the history of quantum mechanics. It's called the Stern-Gerlach experiment. And it was performed in 1922 by two now famous physicists. One of them is Stern, and I bet you can't guess who the other one is. No, it's Gerlach. The other one is Gerlach. So Stern and Gerlach, this is the plaque that commemorates the experiment, and this is around the time that quantum mechanics was being developed. In this video, I want to introduce you to the basic physics of the experiment, so how the experiment works, and we will talk in more detail later about what we learned from the experiment, the conclusions of it. The Stern-Gerlach experiment has to do with the response of a particle's magnetic moment to an inhomogeneous magnetic field. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. And so we're first going to talk about what is a magnetic moment and how does it respond to an inhomogeneous magnetic field. Let's go back to thinking about bar magnets. We'll call a magnetic dipole. So if you have a bar magnet and you put this magnet in an external magnetic field, so this is going to be some other magnetic field, just like a compass needle, this thing will tend to align with the magnetic field. This is if they have a uniform magnetic field. Just think of a compass needle. It responds to whatever external magnetic field is being applied there. And of course, this will eventually align with the magnetic field. This is how the dipole likes to be aligned, north axis pointing up. And we're going to define a quantity called the magnetic moment. It's a vector which points from south to north on the bar magnet, denoted by the Greek letter mu. So mu called the magnetic moment, which tends to align with any external magnetic field. The potential energy of the dipole in an external magnetic field is
But what if it's rotating?
minus mu dotted with b, which if you expand the dot product, this would be the magnitude of the vector mu, the magnitude of b.
Wait, what's
minus
v?
So if you have a bar magnet and you put this magnet in an external magnetic field, so this is going to be some other magnetic field, just like a compass needle, this thing will tend to align with the magnetic field. This is if they have a uniform magnetic field. Just think of a compass needle. It responds to whatever external magnetic field is being applied there. And of course, this will eventually align with the magnetic field. This is how the dipole likes to be aligned, north axis pointing up. And we're going to define a quantity called the magnetic moment. It's a vector which points from south to north on the bar magnet, denoted by the Greek letter mu. So mu is called the magnetic moment, which tends to align with any external magnetic field. The potential energy of the dipole in an external magnetic field is minus mu dotted with b, which if you expand the dot product, this would be the magnitude of the vector mu, the magnitude of b, times the cosine of the angle between those two. So for example, over here, this angle here would be theta. And you can see that when theta is 0, then cosine theta is 1, and the potential energy is lowest. So the lowest potential energy is when mu is aligned with the magnetic field. And of course, systems like to be in a situation where the potential energy is lowest. Okay? So now what I'd like you to imagine is, imagine you could somehow arrange for an inhomogeneous magnetic field. The magnetic field is going to be weak on this side, much stronger down here, so longer arrows. B here is strong, and the magnetic field here is weak. What will happen to this dipole? Now, it may bother you that this particular inhomogeneous magnetic field, you're kind of wondering how would I set something like that up, but put that aside for a second. Just imagine you could create some magnetic field which is inhomogeneous like this. What will happen to this? When the bar magnet aligns with a magnetic field, it's because the north pole is being pulled upward and the south pole is being pulled downward. And if those forces are the same, it will just turn to align. And that would be the case when the magnetic field is homogeneous. But in this situation, the force on the south pole downward is larger than the force on the north pole upwards. So there's a downward force here, which is larger than the upward force here. And that net force would be downward. Okay. So if you put a magnetic dipole in an inhomogeneous magnetic field, it will feel a net force. And how do we calculate the net force on this dipole? The net force is related to the potential energy like this. F is equal to minus the gradient of the potential energy. So this is the relationship between forces and potential energy. F is equal to minus the gradient of the potential energy. So let's substitute in the value of the potential energy. So minus the gradient minus mu dot b. And the two minuses cancel out, so I just get the gradient of mu dot b. As a concrete example, let's suppose that b is equal to something which decreases linearly with z. So it's just a linear function of z, and we're going to assume that alpha is a positive number. So b only has a z component. So then in this case, my force, sorry, there should be a vector on top of this. The force would be equal to the gradient of mu dot b. So the gradient of mu dot b, so b only has a z component, that would be mu z times bz. And if we assume that mu z is a constant, so this is a constant.
He chose the wrong color because you can't see it because of his face. Oh my god.
The gradient of mu dot b. As a concrete example, let's suppose that b is equal to something which decreases linearly with z. So
Okay. Linearly with z, I guess z is up and down. So with z alpha, we start with b, linear with z. Okay.
it's just a linear function of z, and we're going to assume that alpha is a positive number. So b only has a z component. So then in this case, my force, sorry, there should be a vector on top of this. The force would be equal to the gradient of mu dot b. So the gradient of mu dot b, so b only has a z component, that would be mu z times bz. And if we assume that mu z is a constant, so this is a constant, it's a property of the bar magnet, then I just have mu z times the gradient of bz, which is the gradient of b0 minus alpha z. The only coordinate which this depends on is z. This is going to be mu z times d by dz. Of b0 minus alpha z, k hat. So the force is going to be equal to minus 2z alpha k hat. So the force is in the negative z direction, assuming that the magnetic field gets weaker as you increase with z. So in other words, this here has a magnetic field which is decreasing with z. So this is b.
F is equal, I'm going to mu alpha k hat. K just means z, direction. And alpha is the gradient, basically, the gradient multiplier.
Which is similar to the situation. This here has a magnetic field which is decreasing with z. So this is b. Which is similar to the situation we had before, where we had a strong magnetic field here and a weak magnetic field on the top here. And we said that the net force on this magnet would be downward. I'm assuming the positive z is upward. Now, what does this have to do with quantum physics? First, I'm going to make a connection between the bar magnet and current loop. So let's talk classically about current loops. And then the key is we're going to think about atoms, like a hydrogen atom, as a current loop. So I'm going to keep these here for later convenience. All right, there's no bar magnets that you know of in quantum physics or in subatomic physics. And furthermore, what is this mu z? Like I told you, it was a vector that pointed from south pole to the north pole of a magnet, but how do I calculate the actual magnitude of that? For that, I'm going to need to remind you, or perhaps teach you for the first time, that if you have a loop of current, so imagine the current is flowing in this way, this loop will act like a bar magnet. It will align with an external magnetic field. And that magnetic moment points perpendicular to the plane of the loop. So my magnetic moment will be like this. This will be 90 degrees here. The direction of that magnetic moment is found by using the right-hand rule. The magnitude of the magnetic moment for a current loop.
He just used his left hand. That's how you know we're looking at a mirror image.
The direction of that magnetic moment is found by using the right-hand rule.
One comment from 6 months ago. Oh my god.
The magnitude of the magnetic moment for a current loop is the magnitude of the current times the area of the loop. So the loop is the area of this. Right? This is something from classical physics, which you might have encountered before, or maybe not. If you place this in a magnetic field, like suppose I loop, the magnitude of the magnetic moment for a current loop is the magnitude of the current times the area of the loop. So the loop is the area of this. Right? This is something from classical physics, which you might have encountered before, or maybe not. If you place this in a magnetic field, like suppose I put it in a magnetic field pointing this way, this loop would then tend to align just like a bar magnet. So this loop of current behaves very similarly to a bar magnet. Now what we want to do is make a connection between the magnetic moment and the angular. This loop of
what is it?
The magnetic moment is found by using the right-hand rule. The magnitude of the magnetic moment for a current loop is the magnitude of the current times the area of the loop. So the loop is the area of this. Right? This is something from classical physics, which you might have encountered before, or maybe not. If you place this in a magnetic field, like suppose I put it in a magnetic field pointing this way, this loop would then tend to align just like a bar magnet. So this loop of current behaves very similarly to a bar magnet. Now what we want to do is make a connection between the magnetic moment and the angular momentum of the particles traveling around this loop. Let's suppose this is an electron, or electrons traveling around the loop. The electrons travel in the opposite direction of the current. So my electron velocity is going to be going this way. So they travel in the opposite direction of the current. Electrons are negatively charged. The current is defined to be the flow of positive charge. And if you have a charged particle traveling around in a loop, in this case clockwise around this loop, it has some angular momentum. And the angular momentum will be given by the right-hand rule, which will be pointing downward. So that's the angular momentum of that electron traveling around the loop, pointing in the opposite direction of the magnetic moment. Let's suppose that instead of a current loop, I'm thinking about it instead as a hydrogen atom. So I have one electron orbiting around one proton. Just an electron orbiting a proton in a circular orbit of radius r. And the angular momentum will be given by the right-hand rule, which will be pointing downward. So that's the angular momentum of that electron.
1 second, I have an email.
Is around this loop, it has some angular momentum, and the angular momentum will be given by the right-hand rule, which will be pointing downward. So that's the angular momentum of that electron traveling around the loop, pointing in the opposite direction of the magnetic moment. Let's suppose that instead of a current loop, I'm thinking about it instead as a hydrogen atom. So I have one electron orbiting around one proton. Just an electron orbiting a proton in a circular orbit of radius r. What's the expression for the magnetic moment in this case? Well, the current is the charge per time, right? And if I imagine this electron making one orbit, the charge is the charge of one electron. The time that it takes to go around it is the period, which is 2 pi r over v. This here, denominator here is the period. And so what is the magnetic moment then? The magnetic moment is the current times the area. So E divided by times V divided by 2 pi r. And then the area of the loop, of course, is going to be circular, so pi r squared. And there's some cancellation here. And I get EVR over 2. This is the magnetic moment, the magnitude of the magnetic moment. Orbiting around one proton. Just an electron orbiting a proton in a circular orbit of radius r. What's the expression for the magnetic moment in this case? Well, the current is the charge per time, right? And if I imagine this electron making one orbit, the charge is the charge of one electron. The time that it takes to go around it is the period, which is 2 pi r over v. This here, the denominator here is the period. And so what is the magnetic moment then? The magnetic moment is the current times the area. So E divided by times V divided by 2 pi r. And then the area of the loop, of course, is going to be circular, so pi r squared. And there's some cancellation here. And I get EVR over 2. Is the magnetic moment, the magnitude of the magnetic moment of this electron traveling around the circular loop. Just to be clear, the velocity of the electron is v, and the radius of this loop is r. Now, what is the angular momentum of the electron? Remember, L is r cross p. So the magnitude of the angular momentum is just going to be rmv, because the velocity and the radial vector are perpendicular to each other, so I don't have to worry about the sign of any angle here. So comparing these two now, mu and L, I've got an r times v here, and we find that mu r times v is L over m, so I'm going to have L.
Okay, so L is RMV. So you have RV, you need to add M, so divide by M.
Divided by 2m times E. This is just an equation for the magnitudes, but you can see that they're in opposite directions. So if I want the expression including the direction, I would put minus E over 2m times L.
What?
It's my game.
What?
It's just
What
the
did you-
game.
It's just a game?
Yeah,
What's just a game?
the thing.
What thing?
Because he
What you
said
playing?
what?
I said what?
Yeah.
When? Wait, I said something?
I thought you were talking about the game.
No, I'm watching a video about the Stern-Gerlach experiment. You want me to tell you about the Stern-Gerlach experiment?
Oh God, what is that?
Oh my God, that's like one of the most confusing quantum mechanical experiments ever. Like these two guys, Stern and Gerlach, they basically didn't believe in quantum mechanics and in the stupidness of quantum mechanics. They literally said, "We don't believe in the nonsense of Bohr." Like Bohr he came up with like a quantum mechanical idea. So Stern and Gerlach, they said, we're gonna disprove the nonsense, the quantum mechanical nonsense. So they set up to disprove quantum mechanics, but they ended up proving it instead of disproving it. They got the Nobel Prize. They got the Nobel Prize for proving it correct when they set out to prove it incorrect. Can you believe? Can you believe? Anyway, I'm going to continue listening to the Stern-Gerlach experiments.
So taking the classical picture of a hydrogen atom as an electron orbiting around the proton.
Okay, so we're up to mu. So we, I don't know why, but he wants to discover what is mu. What is the magnetic moment of the electron? So it's negative E over 2m times L. So it's a multiple of L. You know what is L? You would never.
No.
L is the angular momentum. The angular momentum. Can you believe it? You're never going to believe it. It's so incredulous. It's so incredulous. Anyway.
Proton. It has a
So the magnetic moment is going downwards, but the mu is going upwards, so it's negative. It's incredible. The magnetic moment and the angular moment are in opposite directions, and there's a difference between them. E over m, E over 2m, negative E over 2m. Fascinating.
magnetic moment proportional to its angular momentum. Finally, let's combine these things. So you have a decreasing magnetic field, which is getting weaker the further you go up in Z.
What things? What do you want to combine?
So taking the classical picture of a hydrogen atom as an electron orbiting around the proton, it has a magnetic moment proportional to its angular momentum. Finally, let's combine these things. So you have a decreasing magnetic field, which is getting weaker the further you go up in.
Okay, so in the Stern-Gerlach experiment, we have a magnetic field linearly decreasing magnetic field as you go up. And the force is equal to the negative alpha, which is the linearly change, the change in the magnetic field. So alpha times the mu in the z direction times k, the north direction. Oh my god, I'm so tired. I have to go to sleep. So very nice. So very nice. So. So. Alpha mu. Well, we know mu.
And Z. This object is going to feel a force, and the force is some constant times mu Z times K, including the direction. I would put minus E over 2m times L. So taking the classical picture of a hydrogen atom as an electron orbiting around the proton, it has a magnetic moment proportional to its angular momentum. Finally, let's combine these things. So you have a decreasing magnetic field, which is getting weaker the further you go up in Z. This object is going to feel a force, and the force is some constant times mu Z times K hat. Let's combine these things together. So the force, if I took this atom and put it in an inhomogeneous magnetic field with the magnetic field getting weaker as I go further in Z, the force would be equal to minus constant alpha times the Z component of the magnetic moment. But the magnetic moment is proportional to angular momentum. And the minuses cancel out here. I just get some constant. It's not really important what that constant is, times LZ is in the K hat directions. So what we show is that if you take atom momentum, and the minuses cancel out here, I just get some constant. It's not really important what that constant is, times LZ is in the K hat directions. So what we showed is that if you take atom, something with a magnetic moment, you put it in a magnetic field which gets weaker as you go upward in Z, that the atom will experience a force upward proportional to the Z component of its angular momentum. And if the Z component of its angular momentum is positive, the force will be upward. If the Z component of its angular momentum is downward,
This is classical.
the force will be downward. So this is a cartoon of the Stern-Gerlach apparatus. I have some permanent magnets with the North Pole touching close to the South Pole, but you notice the lower magnet is pointed so that the magnetic field near the North Pole is stronger than the magnetic field near the South Pole. This magnetic field gets weaker as I go upward like this. So if this direction here is the Z direction, so we have exactly the same situation I discussed, where the magnetic field gets weaker as I go upward in Z. So my Stern-Gerlach experiment, the idea is to take some particle or some atom and shoot it through this inhomogeneous magnetic field. So what will happen is, depending on the Z component of its angular momentum, it will get deflected. If the Z component of its angular momentum is upward, this particle will get deflected upward, and if the Z component of its angular momentum is downward, it will get deflected downward. Stern-Gerlach experiment, the idea is to take some particle or some atom and shoot it through this inhomogeneous magnetic field. So what will
Hey,
happen
I'm gonna
depending
go.
on the Z
Someone I know is on right now.
Okay, catch you later.
See ya.
See you, bye. La 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 la. I'm so happy that I'm out of that terrible server. What a it's not the waste of time, but it was such a depressing environment. Oh my god, such a toxic environment.
component of its angular momentum, it will get deflected. If the z component of its angular momentum is upward, this particle will get deflected upward, and if the z component of its angular momentum is downward, it'll get deflected downward. So this device, the Stern-Gerlach experiment, is an ingenious way of a way of measuring the z component of the angular momentum. And measuring the component of the angular momentum along the direction of the magnetic field. And again, this particle will either get deflected upward or get deflected downward, depending on the z component of its angular momentum. Or if it has no angular momentum, it would just go straight through and wouldn't be deflected. So depending on the results of what this particle does, I can tell you about the z component of its angular momentum. We'll stop here, and then we will talk in class about the results of this experiment when you put, say, a hydrogen atom through this, or what if I put a single electron through this? What do I get? Thanks all for your attention. Hope you found this useful. See you all in class.
See you all in hell. See you in hell.
Welcome back. So for our first real lecture,
Fix your audio, man. You gotta fix your audio.
Today, quantum information, a beginner's guide. Hey, just a quick public service announcement before we get started. It's November, which is a month. Typically, we try to raise awareness for men's health issues. We often do this by trying to grow a mustache. So it's been a few days, and we'll see what happens by the end of the month. I'm a little nervous. But if you're a man and you're over the age of, 50, go to your doctor, get checked out. It's important. If you know a man who is reticent about going to the doctor to get things checked, I can totally relate to that. Still recommend to them as much as you can, advocate for them to go get checked, especially if they're over the age of 50. For more information, you can go ahead and check out Movember.com. They've got a lot to say there. Okay, on with the show. We've been talking about the Stern-Gerlach experiment a lot, and last time we talked about it in the context of quantum information, and we built out circuits, or toy circuits, if you like, of multiple Stern-Gerlach experiments chained together. One of our examples that we gave turned out to be an error, and we only discovered this error after publishing the video. Unfortunately, explaining why we were in error requires a lot of technical mathematical machinery to really get that point across. Fortunately, we are at a point now where it is time to learn the technical mathematical machinery associated to quantum mechanics. So today, we are going to explain why we were wrong and what the true answer is in this video by explaining to you some of the precise technical mathematics involved in quantum mechanics. Let's get started. Today, quantum information, a beginner's guide.
welcome back. So for our first real lecture,
Today, quantum information, a beginner's guide.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this guy has like advanced topics.
Particles. I got my doctorate in high energy physics, studying the relationship between particle masses and the earliest moments of the universe. So I love this stuff, and I can't wait to share it with you. Over the next few weeks, my main objective is going to be to answer the question, why should particle physics matter to us? The answer to that starts with a simple observation, that elementary particles are all around us, all the time, and our interactions with them can have far-ranging consequences. To illustrate that point, I want to tell you a little story.
Awesome for skiing, a technical writing class in college. We were all given prompts, and my prompt at the bottom of cooling ponds of nuclear reactors. You know, stuff you see in a James Bond movie. Really sterile, and for me, really boring. My technical essay. I was in dire straits. So for 2 anxiety-filled days, I relentlessly searched the library catalogs for anything on Cherenkov radiation that didn't involve nuclear power. And not that there's anything wrong with nuclear power, I just wasn't excited about writing an essay about that. Weird, right? Research letters. In situ photolysis of deep ice core contaminants from cosmic origin. In other words, glaciers, cosmic rays, and Cherenkov radiation. Isn't that cool? Climate scientists were studying the atmosphere at ancient times by looking at particles of gas, by looking at gas trapped in bubbles deep in the ice sheets from Greenland and from Antarctica. And the problem was that the concentrations of gases in Greenland didn't agree with the concentrations of gases in Antarctica. You see, in Greenland, there's a bunch of organic matter, like frozen in the ice, plant stuff, animal, like, that kind of stuff. In Antarctica, the world's largest desert, not so much. The idea is that particles from outer space smash through the ice of the glaciers in Greenland and emit Cherenkov radiation, which is basically like ultraviolet light. You know, that stuff that causes you to get sunburns. Anyway, it breaks down some of that organic matter in the ice in Greenland, which generates gases. And those gases basically match the missing gases from the ice cores and cause the climate samples to agree. In other words, particle physics helps solve a problem in climate science. How cool is that? I love that. I keep saying cool because look at all the snow that's around. Oh, look at that. Oh. So ever since
Look at all this snow from all the global warming.
I've kind of had this unique perspective on particle physics in that it's really deeply connected to a lot of other stuff, a lot of the world around us, which is why we're here today.
Was that example a little too much too soon? If so, don't worry about it. We'll cover all kinds of things like Cherenkov radiation and muons and cosmic rays and stuff later on in the course. In fact, here's a schedule of what's to come over the next 6 weeks. In our first week, we'll start with something that's hopefully familiar to everybody, helium. What might not be familiar is where helium comes from, or the entire economy built around medical devices and technology that helium plays an integral role in. we'll discuss the natural forces that generate helium and how those forces are related to plate tectonics and the Earth's magnetic field that actually shields us from particles flying in from space. In our second week, we'll look at those particles flying in from outer space, specifically those that are energetic enough to pierce the magnetic field and slam into the Earth. These are the cosmic muons. They're the same particles that penetrate the Greenland ice sheets we talked about earlier. They are born in the upper atmosphere from collisions with extremely energetic particles coming in from deep space. A sizable chunk of your annual radiation exposure comes from these muons. In the third week, we'll talk about another particle that comes in from outer space, the neutrinos, and there's a lot more of them. But fortunately, they're very, very timid. They don't really interact. They're kind of like ghosts. They can fly straight through us, straight through the Earth, which makes them really hard to measure. But some crafty physicists have created a giant neutrino telescope in the ice in Antarctica using Cherenkov radiation. In the fourth week, we'll turn our attention back to the familiar. That is to say, we're going to discuss the particles of light, or photons. Understanding how photons make up light waves will teach us a lot about quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics is integral to the study of particle physics. Along the way, we'll see how they're essential for all sorts of things, from assessing the composition of material, to that heart rate monitor on your wristwatch, to knowing how old the universe is. In the fifth week, we'll pick up the tricky topic of antimatter. And I'm hoping to convince you that it's not terribly exotic or sinister in any kind of way. Antimatter exists, and it's all around us pretty much all the time. From a particle physics perspective, antimatter is intimately related to our perception of time. What's really mysterious is why there's so much of this regular matter around. In our sixth and final week, we'll be discussing a heavier, more rambunctious particle known as the tau. Experimentalists love taus. They behave very differently than muons or electrons for that matter. Great, so let's run down what to expect in a given week. On Sunday evenings, we'll send out an email with the notes for the week. These are the notes to accompany the video, and we'll include some references and some other ideas to think about. On Tuesdays, at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to premiere our video for the week on YouTube. It will be a live premiere, so please join me in the chat room. Or if you can't make it, it'll be there on YouTube for you when you get the time. On Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, we'll be doing a live stream office hours session. So bring your questions, or better yet, post the questions ahead of time in the Facebook group or to us via email. If you can't make the live office hours, don't fret. We'll record them and post them for everyone to see afterwards. On Fridays, I'll send out a summary of the week's material and update the notes to include the questions and answers that you all brought up over the course of the week. Finally, at the end of week 6, I'll combine all the notes and all of the questions and answers into one final booklet that you'll be able to take with you at the end of the course. The essay. Okay, this is the real meat of the class. I strongly encourage everybody to participate in the essay. I mean, this course is free, so obviously it's optional, but it's a really great opportunity to dive deep into a specific topic in particle physics and add to your creative portfolio. Around week 3 or so, I'll send out a list of possible essay topics, but of course you can bring your own. If you do decide to write the essay, we'll set up a one-on-one call where we can brainstorm and kind of fix the scope of what your essay should be. Towards the end of the course, or when you're ready with your rough draft, we'll do another one-on-one, and we'll recommend some changes, ask some questions, poke around, and really get that essay tightened up. Then, when you're ready, we'll schedule a defense for the essay. You'll present your findings, we'll ask you a bunch of questions. A successful defense means that we'll publish your essay in the booklet at the end of the course, and we'll encourage you to give a short presentation to your peers. Hey, we'll probably even send you a little reward in the mail for it. How to get in touch? Well, there's plenty of ways. 1, you can sign up for the Facebook group and have conversations there. 2, you can shoot me an email at any time, or you can send an email kind of anonymously through the website if that's what you're into. And of course, you can check us out at the live office hours or in the live premieres. Plenty of options. So let's keep in touch. Let's help each other learn, and let's explore this world of particle physics together. I'm so excited that you decided to join us. So talk to you soon.
So that was the first video. Oh, the Stern Gerlach is just 4 videos. Let's try starting from 1.
Today, the first ever experiment that showed that angular momentum was quantized. Let's go. Solution for the information carrying capacity of space. We've discussed 2 main. So far, we've discussed 2 major themes about quantum mechanics. The first is H, Planck's constant, the thing that sets the finite resolution for the information carrying capacity of space and pi. In particular, we've studied how H quantizes angular momentum into integral units of the value H over 4 pi. We've also learned that angular momentum is not only quantized in its values, but it's also quantized in its observations. So if we think of it like a vector, any projection of that vector along a specific direction, like the x component of the angular momentum vector, will also be observed only in integral units of...
Where did you discuss it? So is there angular momentum? Let's see. Quantum mechanics for the working professional. 11 videos. Problems and solutions. 8 videos. 6 videos. Industries. 3 videos. Quantum mechanics for... Okay, that's the same. 3 videos. A crash course special activity. 6 videos. Field guide to particle physics. I don't know. Let me see this.
Are you an economist or a social scientist, a psychologist, maybe an engineer, a developer, a data scientist, that kind of thing? Somebody who maybe has seen some calculus and a little bit of linear algebra. Then do we have a course for you?
The scale of quantum phenomena, light in a box, photon transition in hydrogen, the polarization of photons, spin angular momentum. Let's give it a shot.
Hey, physics friends.
He's wasting so much time with the music. Oh my god.
It has been long overdue, but we are finally launching our official final form, quantum mechanics for the working professionals. I know, right? Exciting. This course will include the basics of quantum mechanics and quantum information, some applications to computing and chemistry, astronomy, and thermodynamics, friendly supporting ideas from algebra, statistics, and calculus. Also, we'll have bonus challenging sections for the more mathematically motivated listeners. And finally, we'll include exercises so you can check your understanding. Everyone who's registered so far, thank you so much. I'm going to add you to a mailing list, and we'll start sending out the episodes next month. Very excited. We'll also include links to the podcast for various platforms, as well as, of course, links to this YouTube channel. case you need extra motivation, unbelievable as it sounds, quantum computing as a service is now a viable product. Amazon Bracket and D-Wave systems have both kind of standard quantum computers as well as thermal quantum computers available for any individual or organization to rent to by the hour or by the minute, by the calculation. This past February, the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House, together with the National Science Foundation of the United States, has put together a joint strategy document that expresses how we as a country are going to move forward with the instruction of the general populace in all things quantum information science and technology. The idea being is that we need a lot more folks being trained up from K through 12 through college and generally on how quantum mechanics works, how quantum science and technology and information work. So consider this your opportunity to get in at the ground level. Our plan moving forward is that each week we'll drop an episode or 2 or maybe 3. Again, and that will come with a podcast version, a written version, video version, exercises that you can try out on your own. If you want to register for the course, that'd be awesome. You can get the updates in your email inbox as well as get access to our Discord server, which we will reboot again. To do that, just go to the website. And of course, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out in the comments below or via the website or however you can find me. We are really excited about this. So
What is the Discord?
well, for those of you just joining us, that's kind of what we do. Our mission at the State Institute is to build and share physics knowledge without barriers. And because of that, our primary objective, our pillar content is always going to be open access and free in a platform agnostic way. So we're going to make
This
sure
is
that
the
however you consume information,
website.
you'll be able to learn quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics alters the laws of physics on microscopic scale. But what do we mean when we say microscopic scales? Today, we're going to investigate that by interrogating the parameters of quantum mechanics. That is to say, Planck's constant. Let's get started. Physical models depend on parameters. This we've known for a long time. Typically, models come from a lot of experimental observations, and then we deduce the laws of physics from there. Famous example of this is Newton's law of universal gravitation, which is a central force law, which basically tells us that the force of any two masses upon each other is an attractive force, and that force has a magnitude that varies.
Why would you say that? It's not a force between two masses. Because the masses drop out. F equals, it's MA equals GMM over R squared. The M's drop out. So it only depends on one mass.
Linearly with both masses, and inversely with the radial distance between those masses squared. Finally, that force is proportional to a constant that sets the scale for how strong gravity is. And we have come to call that constant G. Now, the force of gravity is really, really weak, as evidenced by the fact that it takes the entire planet Earth to keep us seated on the floor. But if you like a more quantitative approach to the weakness of gravity, we can just simply look at that constant proportionality. We look at that constant G. G is something like 6.67 blah, 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 times 10 to the minus 11 joule meters per kilogram squared. Of course, other forces have very similar laws, like the force of electromagnetism. Electromagnetism similarly has a 1/r squared form. That is to say, given two particles, each with its own electric charge, the force due to the electric field between them is linear in both charges. Again, inversely proportional to the square of the radial distance between the two particles, and is also proportional to a constant that, for historical reasons, has come to be called 1/4 pi epsilon naught, the vacuum permittivity of free space or whatever. Regardless, it has a very similar structure to that of gravitation. To get a sense for the strength of the electric force for Coulomb's law, we can look at its constant of proportionality, that 1/4 pi epsilon naught, evaluated numerically, which is something like 8.99 times 10 to the 9 joule meters per coulomb squared, which appears anyway to be much bigger than gravity's proportionality constant G. But it's a little difficult to really compare them because kilograms and coulombs are just not the same thing. So in order to really compare the forces of gravity with the forces of electricity, we need to find something that has both an electric charge and a mass. So for us, for today, we'll be considering subatomic particles, that is to say, protons and electrons. So the total force between the proton and the electron is the sum of the electric force and the gravitational force between the two. To compare both forces, we can simply evaluate using the known masses and the known charges and the known constants of proportionality for each force. And we can ask, okay, so what's the relative strength of the electric force to the gravitational force? And for this case, anyway, we see that the electric force, Coulomb's law, completely dominates the interactions between the proton and the electron. The gravitational force is just incredibly, incredibly weak. It's negligible for all intents and purposes. And this makes a lot of sense, right? Because if we look at the physical scales involved in the different forces, gravitation is the thing that binds planets and stars together, right? And so a typical planet in our solar system orbits the sun at a distance of something like,
It's a cut on his nose. I thought it was cancer, but it's just a cut.
a few hundreds of thousands of miles, or a few hundreds of millions of miles in the case of like Jupiter and Saturn and so on. Whereas for the case of the atom, the electron tends to orbit the proton at distances that are more akin to like the sub-nanometer scale. So we talk about different kinds of physics operating at different kinds of scales. That's what we're talking about. Gravitation operates at the hundreds of thousands of mile scale, and electromagnetic interactions operate on the atomic scale. And fortunately for us, for the study of quantum mechanics, almost everything that we're going to have to deal with happens at the atomic scale.
Yeah, but if a planet, imagine a planet of electrons or a planet of protons, that it's gonna be very powerful. It's gonna the attractive force on an electron is gonna be immense.
Different kinds of physical phenomena like the force of gravity and the electromagnetic force all have their own characteristic scales associated to their own characteristic parameters like G and epsilon naught. What's somewhat unique about quantum mechanics is it applies across the board to all physical phenomena, as we will eventually learn. Quantum mechanics too has its own characteristic scale, its own parameter. Planck's constant H sets a fundamental resolution to information density in space and time. The precise value of H isn't particularly illuminating. It's something like 6.63 times 10 to the minus 34 joules seconds. To get a better intuition for how
1 second.
H applies, particularly in scales relevant to atoms or chemistry, it's helpful to introduce another physical parameter, another constant of nature, the speed of light, c. The speed of light represents not just the velocity of particles of light, but also puts a fundamental speed limit on how fast information can travel through space and time. C is just shy of 300 million meters per second. The precise value isn't terribly important or intuitive or useful a priori, but what is useful is the product, H times C. H times C by itself looks something like 1240 electron volt nanometers. The electron volt, remember, is just a unit of energy and can be represented in the more human-friendly joules, but it's basically the amount of energy that you have with one electron held at 1 volt. So if you have a 9 volt battery plugged into something heuristically, you can think of that as all of the electrons coming out of that 9 volt battery being spit out at 9 electron volts worth of energy each. We'll revisit this idea of comparing things. Something like 1240 light represents not just the velocity of particles of light, but also puts a fundamental speed limit on how fast information can travel through space and time. C is just shy of 300 million meters per second. The precise value isn't terribly important or intuitive or useful a priori, but what is useful is the product, H times C. H times C by itself looks something like 1240 electron volt nanometers. The electron volt, remember, is just a unit of energy and can be represented in the more human-friendly joules, but it's basically the amount of energy that you have with one electron held at 1 volt. So if you have a 9 volt battery, plugged into something heuristically, you can think of that as all of the electrons coming out of that 9 volt battery being spit out. The product, H times C. H times C by itself looks something like 1240 electron volt nanometers. Electron volt.
What the heck is H times C? Why would I care about H times C?
But also puts a fundamental speed limit on how fast information can travel through space and time. C is just shy of 300 million meters per second. The precise value isn't terribly important or intuitive or useful a priori, but what is useful is the product, H times C. H times C by itself looks something like 1240 electron volt nanometers. The electron volt, remember, is just a unit of energy and can be represented in more human-friendly joules, but it's basically the amount of energy that you have with one electron held at 1 volt. So if you have a 9 volt battery plugged into something heuristically, you can think of that as all of the electrons coming out of that 9 volt battery being spit out at 9 electron volts worth of energy each. We'll revisit this idea of comparing things to H and HC a little bit later in the course, but for now, it's for all practical purposes. Let's just say when we have something that looks like a length times an energy, we begin to worry about quantum mechanics.
I don't like it when they present an idea and they just say, we'll come back to it. Like, you mentioned it. Well, what do you want me to do with it? If you don't explain it, then you just wasted my time. What is HC? I've never heard anyone multiply H and C and say it's meaningful.
But what is useful is the product, H times C. H times C by itself looks something like 1240 electron volt nanometers. The electron volt, remember, is just a unit of energy and can be represented in the more human-friendly joules, but it's basically the amount of energy that you have with one electron held at 1 volt. So if you have a 9 volt battery plugged into something heuristically, you can think of that as all of the electrons coming out of that 9 volt battery being spit out at 9 electron volts worth of energy each. We'll revisit this idea of comparing things to
I have no idea what he just said. H and
HC a little bit later in the course. But for now, it's for all practical purposes. Let's just say when we have something that looks like a length times an energy, we begin to worry about quantum mechanics when that quantity, that product, starts to approach the smallest kind of possible size that we need to concern ourselves with, right? At 1240 electron volt nanometers.
Okay, this is a complete waste of time. That's no way to teach. He doesn't know how to teach. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to mention something and I'm not going to explain it. Yeah, let's move to the next topic. Okay, you just wasted my time.
than G. But it's a little difficult to really compare them because kilograms and coulombs are just not the same thing. So in order to really compare the forces of gravity with forces of electricity, we need to find something that has both an electric charge and a mass. So for us, for today, we'll be considering subatomic particles, that is to say protons and electrons. So the total force between the proton and the electron is the sum of the electric force and the gravitational force between the two.
There's no way you can teach like this. You're like skipping every step. Let's skip steps, skip steps, skip steps. Why are you wasting my time? That's not how you teach. You can't skip steps. Goodbye. Enough is enough. Let's go back to this guy. He's the only one who knows how to teach.
Value. What you will typically find is that that self-same Hermitian matrix may operate on a different vector to produce the same different vector, but multiplied by a different real number. And what you will say is that for each Hermitian matrix, they will have two separate eigenvectors, each of which will give rise to a separate eigenvalue. That's the maths. Now we can move on to the physics. And what the physics says is that the Hermitian matrix represents that a Hermitian matrix acting on a vector produces the same vector, but now just multiplied by an ordinary real number. And when that is the case, that vector is called an eigenvector, and that number is called an eigenvalue. What you will typically find is that that self-same Hermitian matrix may operate on a different vector to produce the same different vector, but multiplied by a different real number. And what you will say is that for each Hermitian matrix, they will have two separate eigenvectors, each of which will give rise to a separate eigenvalue. That's the maths. Now we can move on to the physics. And what the physics says is that the Hermitian matrix represents a measurable or an observable, something that you're going to actually measure. The eigenvectors represent the possible states of the system, and the eigenvalues represent the actual results you get when you make the measurement. I hope all will become clear when I do some examples of this in a moment. I want to consider some of this by considering the issue of polarization. Now, we covered that in one of the videos in the series on electromagnetic radiation. And amongst other things, we said that if you take unpolarized light and you send it through a polarizer which will polarize vertically, that's how I will represent a polarizer that will polarize vertically. You send unpolarized light through this polarizer. When it comes out the other side, it will be vertically polarized. If you then send it through another polarizer, which is also vertically polarized, then all of the light in this section will get through. 100% of the light that is polarized gets through the vertical polarizer and comes out the other side, because the polarizer is in the same direction as the light that is polarized. It all goes through. By contrast, if we take exactly the same experimental setup with our vertical polarizer and we send it through a polarizer, this is now polarized in the vertical direction. You've got polarized light in polarized light, you put it through the vertical polarizer, out it comes vertically polarized, and now you put it through a polarizer which is polarized at 45 degrees. And what do you find? You find that 50% of the intensity of the light that was coming towards this polarizer comes out the other side. So whatever the intensity is of the polarized light here, 50% of it comes out the other side. That's what we learned from the video on electromagnetic radiation. That is all experimentally verifiable. More generally, we said that if you put this light through a polarizer in the vertical direction, so that it comes out vertically polarized, and then you then put it through a polarizer which is at an angle theta to the vertical direction, then the intensity of the radiation that comes through that second polarizer will fall off according to cos squared theta. In other words, when theta is naught, that is to say the polarizer is in exactly the same direction as the original polarizer and the polarized light. When cosine theta is naught, when cosine naught equals 1, when theta is naught, cosine theta is 1, cosine squared theta is 1, 100% of the light comes through. When theta is 90, cosine 90 is naught, cosine squared naught is naught, none of it comes through. So the intensity of the radiation falls off according to the angle between this polarizer and this polarizer. But I said that there was a bit of a problem with this in terms of dealing with it solely classically mechanical, because the intensity of radiation is proportional to the E field squared. And this might be taken to suggest that if the intensity falls off as the cosine squared term, if intensity goes down, that must mean that the E field goes down. And that means that the total energy goes down. Now, the total energy, you know that the energy of a photon is given by Planck's constant times the frequency. So that suggests that if the energy is going down, since h is constant, the frequency must be going down. And that suggests that the light will change color. But in fact, that's not true. What happens is if you send blue light polarized here Less blue light will go through, the intensity of the blue light will change by cosine squared theta, but the color won't change. So this can't be entirely right. And what we're now going to look at is the quantum mechanical concept, which says, and I'll just give you a brief overview, what happens is that this unpolarized light consists of lots of photons. Some of them will get through this first polarizer, and some of them won't. The ones that get through will be polarized vertically. When the photons get to the next polarizer, again, some of them will get through, some of them won't. The ones that do get through retain the same frequency of the radiation. It's just that fewer of them get through. Consequently, the total intensity reduces because the total number of photons that gets through reduces. So the total amount of energy that gets through reduces because each photon contains a certain amount of energy. And if fewer of them get through the second polarizer, then there will be less energy overall that gets through, but the frequency of the radiation doesn't change. Now we're going to look at that from a reduces, so the total amount of energy that gets through reduces because each photon contains a certain amount of energy, and if fewer of them get through the second polarizer, then there will be less energy overall that gets through, but the frequency of the radiation doesn't change. Now we're going to look at that from a quantum mechanical point of view, using the concepts that we developed earlier in this video. And if you, again, I say, if you ask me the question, why do we do that? The answer is because it works. So I'm going to consider polarization horizontally as being the x state, represented as the x ket vector. And I'm going to call that.
I don't understand the question. You expected the color to change? Because the energy goes down? The energy of what? The energy is only related to the frequency? What if you... But that's the energy per photon. These are different energies. Are you out of your mind? This is the energy of a single particle.
That must mean that the E field goes down, and that means that the total energy goes down. Now, the total energy, you know that the energy of a photon is...
It's the energy of a photon. This is not the energy of a photon.
By Planck's constant time of frequency. So that suggests that if the energy is going down, since h is a constant...
It's the energy of a photon. No one suggested the energy of a photon goes down. 3122.
The frequency must be going down, and that suggests that the light will change color. But in fact, that's not true. What happens is if you send blue light polarized here, less blue light will go through. The intensity of the blue light will change by cosine squared theta, but the color won't change. So this can't be entirely right.
The intensity, this is the energy of a beam of light, not a single photon. This is not the intensity of a single photon. No one ever said that the energy of a photon is related to its intensity. There is no intensity. Intensity just means the number of photons. This is the energy of a number of photons. This is the energy of a single photon. This is... These things have nothing to do with each other. I mean, this is the energy of a single photon. And this is the energy of a bunch of photons. What's the question? This is such a waste of time. Like, quantum mechanics is people choosing to be dumb. What is going on?
And what we're now going to look at is the quantum mechanical concept, which says, and I'll just give you a brief overview, what happens is that this unpolarized light consists of lots of photons. Some of them will get through this first polarizer, and some of them won't. The ones that get through will be polarized vertically. When the photons get to the next polarizer, again, some of them will get through, some of them won't. The ones that do get through retain the same frequency of the radiation. It's just that fewer of them get through. Consequently, the total intensity reduces because the total number of photons that get through reduces. So the total amount of energy that gets through reduces because each photon contains a certain amount of energy. And if fewer of them get through the second polarizer, then there will be less energy overall that gets through, but the frequency of the radiation doesn't change. Now we're going to look at that from a quantum mechanical point of view using the concepts that we developed earlier in this video. And
That is a quantum mechanical point of view.
if you, again, I say, if you ask me the question, why do we do that? The answer is because it works.
What do you mean because it works? What doesn't work? What are you talking about? This is completely intuitive.
So I'm going to consider polarization horizontally as being the x state represented as the x ket vector. And I'm going to call that 1, 0. Now I'm conscious that I haven't explained why I've done that. That will come later. For the time being, let's just get some general concepts out so you can see how it works. I'm also going to consider vertical polarization, and I'm going to call that the y ket vector, and that is going to be represented as 0 and 1. Now I'm going to introduce that term that I said would be very important, and that is the inner product of x and y. And this turns out to have earlier in this video. And if you, again, I say, if you ask me the question, why do we do that? The answer is because it works. So I'm going to consider polarization horizontally as being the x state represented as the x ket vector. And I'm going to call that 1, 0. Now I'm conscious that I haven't explained why I've done that. That will come later. For the time being, let's just get some...
It's the x ket, and this is the vector form of the x ket.
general concepts out so you can see how it works. I'm also going to consider vertical polarization, and I'm going to call that the y ket vector, and that is going to be
The polarization, this is the state of the system. So this is polarized light. It's not a slit.
represented as 0 and 1. Now I'm going to introduce that term that I said would be very important, and that is the inner product of x and y. And this turns out to have a very important physics meaning. What it means is, if I prepare light in the y state, that is to say, I prepare it in the vertically polarized state, what are the chances of it going through an x polarizer, that is, a horizontal polarizer? Now we already know the answer to that. If you prepare it in the vertical state and try and put it through a horizontal polarizer, nothing will get through. So we
Anyway, y meaning vertical light going through a horizontal polarizer gives 0. So this times this is 0.
we know the answer experimentally, and we know the answer classically. So this has got to come up with the same result. And what we say in physics is that the inner product of x with y, that is, you prepare it in y and you try to put it through x, that whole term is what is called the probability amplitude. Not the probability.
Okay, let me take a break. I'll be back.